A Crown Without a King. How a royal line mysteriously ended and shaped a nation's legacy. For centuries, the kingdom of Ardinia flourished under the long stewardship of its ruling House of Erenwald, a dynasty that traced its line back to an era shrouded in half-legendary triumphs and whispered curses. Sequestered between the rugged Emerald Mountains to the north and a coastline battered by icy winds in the south, Ardinia developed its identity as a fiercely independent realm, protected by natural barriers and guided by a monarchy that claimed divine favor. The capital city, Greyford, grew from a humble fortress perched on a river's bend to a thriving seat of power, its cobblestone streets winding around a hilltop palace famed for its dramatic architecture and treasure-laden vaults. Here, the monarchy reigned in relative peace, forging alliances and overseeing expansions that wove Ardinia into a major trade corridor. Generation after generation wore the Erenwald crown with pride, each monarch carefully schooled in the dynastic traditions that combined statecraft with ritual. Then came the shocking events that ended the line in a single night, an unsolved disappearance that left the realm rudderless, burdened with rumors of betrayal and arcane interventions. This single catastrophe would transform Ardinia's destiny for centuries. Legends hold that the House of Erenwald began with Arald the Wayfarer, a wandering chieftain who supposedly convinced mountain spirits to bless him with longevity and wise rule. Whether that account has any truth, most historians agree the earliest recorded figure was Prince Hadric Erenwald, who unified warring tribes around Greyford some 6 centuries earlier. The official genealogical scrolls from Greyford's royal library detail each subsequent king or queen, describing small but significant expansions in territory, the building of ambitious fortifications, and the forging of pacts with neighboring domains. By the time King Loryn Erenwald ascended the throne 3 generations before the dynasty's collapse, Ardinia had entered a golden age. Commerce thrived, with caravans laden with spices, silks, and precious metals flowing along highland roads from the southern deserts to the northern seas. The monarchy maintained stability through shrewd diplomacy, leveraging marriage alliances and carefully balanced trade privileges. Under Brynthur's son, King Loryn Erenwald, the realm saw the construction of Greyford's Grand Basilica, a testament to the blend of old pagan customs with the newly embraced faith that had swept the region. People whispered that Loryn possessed a gift of prophecy, gleaning glimpses of threats that allowed him to thwart conspiracies before they matured. Whether or not that was mere hagiographic flourish, the monarchy's hold on Ardinia was secure, carried by the fervent loyalty of the population. But every line that rises must someday face its vulnerability. In the House of Erenwald's case, the first hint of unraveling came under the relatively short reign of King Mathis Erenwald, often described in court diaries as a gentle soul, more scholar than sovereign. Mathis was enthralled by old scrolls that recounted spells or rituals from Ardinia's pagan era. He believed they might contain insight into how to preserve the kingdom's prosperity. The nobility indulged his eccentricities. After all, trade was booming, and the peasantry was relatively content. Yet a handful of Mathis courtiers worried that the king's forays into archaic lore teetered dangerously close to heresy in the eyes of the new mainstream faith, which favored a single deity of light and frowned upon attempts to harness older, half-forgotten powers. Rumors circulated that Mathis ventured on secret journeys to shrines hidden in the mountains, possibly forging deals with ancient forces. Such whispers rarely left the palace's corridors, but found their way into diaries later discovered by historians. Mathis died unexpectedly in his mid-30s, leaving behind a teenage heir, Prince Cashin Erenwald. This transition introduced an era of uncertainty. Cashin was bright but untested, known for youthful impetuousness and a longing to prove his worth. Courtiers stepped gingerly around him, unsure how to guide a young man who had lost his father under unexplained circumstances. Some speculated that a fever carried Mathis off, while others suspected foul play by enemies or subversive cults. Cashin, though grieving, wasted no time consolidating his hold. He canceled potential threats from powerful barons through a combination of cunning pardons and strategic marriages. He also built a personal circle of confidants, including a small order of knights sworn to protect the crown's sacred lineage at all costs. For a while, Ardinia maintained its quiet prosperity. The new king found himself adept at pleasing the populace. He lessened certain taxes, opened more positions at the court for common-born talents, and completed the cathedral that Mathis had started, blending Christian-like iconography with subtle references to older local myths. Word spread that Cashin was magnanimous and unafraid to incorporate the region's varied traditions. But behind the reassuring facade, darker currents brewed. Cashin grew increasingly obsessed with an intangible threat, old documents referencing a curse of the Erenwalds. One battered scroll in archaic script described how an Erenwald queen centuries ago had broken a solemn vow to one of Arald the Wayfarer's rumored mountain spirits. This violation was said to doom the line eventually, ensuring that at some appointed time, the monarchy would vanish, leaving the realm a crown without a king. Cashin, who had some of Mathis' scholarly temperament, tried to rationalize it as a mere legend. Yet the notion gnawed at him. Late into the night, he pored over hidden archives in the palace, seeking details of pacts his ancestors might have made. He started confiding in a reclusive mystic named Eivor, rumored to have ties to the old pagan ways. People occasionally glimpsed Eivor sneaking into the castle after dusk, carrying strange talismans. No official statement explained Eivor's presence, fueling hushed speculation among the staff that the king was resorting to obscure rituals to safeguard his line from this ancient curse. To outward appearances, Cashin engaged in the usual tasks. He officiated festivals, received ambassadors, and resolved disputes among noble houses. But close observers sensed an undercurrent of paranoia. Cashin occasionally made cryptic references to ensuring the future remains ours, or locking fate away. Some courtiers reported glimpses of the king wearing a peculiar amulet with runes akin to those found in Arald's earliest shrine, though none dared question him directly. Meanwhile, a small group of devout priests from the mainstream faith grew uneasy, suspecting the king dabbled in forbidden rites. Tension simmered, overshadowed by Ardinia's routine. It's probable that all would have continued in relative stability had it not been for the fateful day that a foreign envoy arrived, heralding a diplomatic breakthrough that might unite Ardinia with a wealthy southern empire. Such a union, by marriage or treaty, would catapult the monarchy's influence beyond its old boundaries. Cashin, seeing it as a potential triumph, arranged a grand feast to celebrate the southern ambassadors. That night, something unimaginable happened. The entire royal family, including Cashin, his mother, the Dowager Queen, and his younger sister, disappeared from the palace, as though they had evaporated into thin air. Guards discovered empty bedchambers with no sign of struggle, no footprints or forced locks. Candles burned low in deserted corridors, and half-eaten banquet dishes lay abandoned in the main dining hall. The highest officials scoured the palace in confusion. Not a single servant could explain how or when the royals had vanished. From the seneschal's recollections, Cashin had excused himself at the feast's midpoint, claiming he needed to check on a personal matter. His mother and sister presumably left earlier. Nothing was missing from the treasury, nor was there any hint of kidnapping or revolt. The monarchy had simply vanished, leaving behind crowns, scepters, and half-signed treaties. The realm woke to a capital in disarray. The throne room was locked from the inside, but upon forcing entry, the guards found no one, only Cassion's crown resting upon a carved wooden stool, as if left intentionally. Panic and speculation gripped Greyford. Some believed that external foes had orchestrated a cunning infiltration. Others whispered that the rumored curse had manifested, whisking the family away to some ephemeral dimension. For days that turned into weeks, the city operated in a state of confusion. The noble houses jockeyed to fill the power vacuum. Some demanded a search party scour every inch of the palace catacombs, suspecting an elaborate secret passage. Indeed, ancient corridors were found, leading to a locked chamber, but offering no sign of the missing Erenwalds. Merchants and peasants, meanwhile, simply wondered who would now oversee taxes and keep trade stable. A caretaker council stepped in temporarily, trying to manage day-to-day affairs. The faith's clergy insisted on prayer vigils, attributing the vanishings to moral backsliding. Others pointed at Cassion's rumored arcane pursuits, surmising he may have triggered a catastrophic ritual. Over the next year, numerous sightings of the king were reported in outlying hamlets or in forest clearings, but all turned out to be illusions or hoaxes. The house was gone, leaving the seat of monarchy an empty symbol. The phrase, "a crown without a king," quickly became the epitome of Ardinia's crisis. Thus began a tumultuous phase for Ardinia. With no legitimate heir to rally behind, factions formed among the aristocracy. Some proposed crowning a distant Erenwald cousin living in an allied territory, but that cousin was not recognized as legitimate by more than half the barons. Others argued for establishing a council-based republic, claiming that the monarchy had proven unreliable, especially with the unnerving abruptness of the royal line's dissolution. A small but fervent group held on to the notion that Cassion would return, brandishing prophecies gleaned from half-literate mystics. Political wrangling erupted in public squares, while local administrators struggled to maintain order. Ardinia's neighboring states, once content to trade, now eyed the kingdom's vulnerability. Border disputes multiplied. Yet the caretaker council managed to avoid full-blown chaos through careful diplomatic outreach. Even so, everything hinged on the question: would the Erenwald monarchy remain lost forever? Over time, new leaders emerged, forming a more stable form of government that blended aristocratic councils with some representation from merchant guilds. That experiment gradually crystallized into a constitutional monarchy in absentia, a system that recognized the monarchy in name, but functionally operated without a crowned figure. All the while, the crown itself, in the literal sense, lay locked in the palace vault. The caretaker council declared that only an Erenwald rightful heir, or a consensus from the entire realm, would decide its fate. Interestingly, this arrangement fostered a surprising era of collaboration among Ardinia's diverse communities, as the drive for collective survival outweighed any single ambition for the vacant throne. Meanwhile, on the edges of memory, legends brewed about what truly happened that night. Some insisted that Cassion, desperate to break the rumored curse, tried a dangerous time-binding ritual with the relics his father had studied, inadvertently sending himself and his kin into a limbo dimension. Others suggested a hidden foe had used potent illusions or sorcery to abduct them. Another theory: the entire Erenwald family, threatened by some unstoppable prophecy, chose voluntary exile into the mountain enclaves to preserve their line from forcibly falling under the curse. Whichever version people believed, an undercurrent of dread lingered in Ardinia's folklore, as though acknowledging that meddling with the flow of fate can produce catastrophic results. Over the decades, the monarchy's disappearance became a cautionary tale told by traveling bards around evening fires. They sang of the day the bells tolled for a feast, only for dawn to find the palace empty of its highest blood, with nothing left but echoes in deserted corridors. Generations passed. The Caretaker Council refined itself into a parliamentary structure. The realm endured new wars, overcame plagues, and advanced in scholarship. Yet the iconic image of a crown, unclaimed on an empty throne, became a national emblem for Ardinia's sense of mysterious resilience. Oddly enough, the monarchy's abrupt vanishing shaped the nation's identity. Freed from the constraints of old feudal obligations, Ardinia developed a certain dynamism in commerce and cultural expression, while maintaining a wistful sense that their storied lineage, so crucial to their identity, might someday return or be replaced by another regal line. Archives from that transitional era brim with conflicting records. Some official documents claim that the monarchy still existed in a suspended capacity, while others declared it extinct. Throughout, the question, "What if the Erenwalds come back?" lingered, fueling popular imaginations. Every now and then, new rumors surfaced. A traveling merchant reported stumbling on a remote mountain cottage that resembled the style of Greyford's architecture, inhabited by a suspiciously regal old woman claiming partial Erenwald heritage. Or a fisherman swore he saw a rowboat bearing a crest identical to the royal signet drifting near the southwestern coast. None of these rumors bore enough credibility to unify Ardinia around a new crowned figure. They served mostly to feed ballads about lost princes and hidden princesses who might re-emerge in Ardinia's hour of greatest need. Indeed, the most enduring legend held that the spirit of the monarchy would return when the realm faced an existential crisis, bridging the gap across centuries if necessary. No crisis large enough to re-summon a missing monarchy ever quite manifested, though. The realm fought off moderate invasions, overcame economic downturns, but never found itself on the brink of oblivion. So the myth of a returning king or queen remained just that, myth. Beyond the political transformations, scholars from near and far studied the Erenwald archives, hoping to solve the puzzle. They pored over Cashin's diaries, many of which survived, but ended abruptly without final entries for the fateful day. They examined the arcane margin notes in older volumes that had once belonged to King Mathis. A few dusty pages alluded to a severing rite that could purportedly quarantine the monarchy's bloodline from any external threat, but the details were cryptic, hinting at an incomplete ritual. Some interpret that as evidence the family attempted to cheat prophecy by stepping physically out of their normal timeline. Others find it ridiculous speculation, concluding that if Cashin tried anything, it likely backfired. As centuries turned into a new epoch of rational thought, the official stance from Ardinian historians was that the monarchy probably died in a clandestine power struggle, the bodies hidden or destroyed. The curse story, they reasoned, was a convenient smokescreen for more mundane treachery. But the general populace never wholeheartedly embraced the cold, rational explanation. The legend was far more alluring, and generations found it more satisfying to believe that the Erenwalds either transcended mortal limitations or fell victim to the cosmic curse they had courted. The intangible presence of the monarchy also left architectural traces. On palace tours, guides point out discrete carvings of the Erenwald crest etched into door frames, corners, or hidden compartments. Each carving radiates a quiet sense of longing, as though the stonemasons themselves sensed the vulnerability of a line so deeply tied to ephemeral pacts. Some visitors report feeling a hush come over them in the old throne room, now repurposed for parliamentary meetings, as if the absence resonates with an unsettled aura. The Caretaker Council's modern successors maintain a ceremonial seat for the monarchy, always left empty, symbolizing the lost line. Once a year, on the anniversary of that mysterious disappearance, a small vigil is held. A single candle is placed on the throne's dais, burning from dawn to dusk, signifying respect for the memory of an era whose abrupt cessation left Ardinia both liberated and longing. In time, art and literature about the lost monarchy proliferated, creating an entire subgenre of Ardinian romantic tradition. Poets wrote verses praising King Cashen's supposed bravery against intangible doom. Painters depicted the dramatic final feast, imagining the faces of the royal family going pale as thunder rumbled from nowhere or a swirl of spectral light enveloped them. Playwrights staged tragedies around the notion that Cashen invoked a primal magic but misread its price, dooming himself and his kin. Over centuries, the monarchy's vanishing became a cultural cornerstone, fueling philosophical questions about destiny, human pride, and the illusions of power. Did the Erenwald legacy highlight that no throne, however gilded, can stand against the deeper tides of fate? Or did it caution that meddling with hidden forces, whether curses or archaic spells, invites ruin? Even in the present day, visitors to Greyford might stand by the palace gates at twilight, gazing at the statue of Arald the Wayfarer with the Erenwald crest at its base, pondering how an entire line of kings and queens could vanish with nary a trace. Some nights, street hawkers sell small pamphlets claiming to reveal the truth of the Erenwald disappearance, each pamphlet offering contradictory theories: clandestine assassins from a rival kingdom, a cosmic rift conjured by Cashen's misguided ritual, or an elaborate staged escape that placed the family in distant lands under new identities. No matter how improbable, each explanation draws curious minds, and the unsolved riddle continues to enthrall new generations. In the final analysis, the story of a crown without a king stands as a unique phenomenon in medieval or early modern history. While other dynasties fell due to conquests, revolutions, or disease, the House of Erenwald left behind only a void, an open question. Their departure shaped the nation's legacy in ways that continue to reverberate. Ardinia blossomed into a realm that learned to function without a direct monarchy, forging a governance that wove tradition, rumor, and progressive ideals together. Freed from the overshadowing presence of an entrenched royal line, the realm discovered fresh directions in commerce, scholarship, and cultural expression, all while keeping the monarchy in the realm of myth and possibility. The intangible heartbreak laced into the legend also gave Ardinia a distinctive romance, a grand lost lineage that perhaps one day might reappear. That sense of wonder and sorrow lingers anytime an outsider stands in the old throne room. The caretaker or guide might point to the days where the crown still rests behind glass, polished to a dull gleam that betrays centuries of careful cleaning. One can't help but imagine Cashen's final moments, the last Erenwald monarch, rumored to hold a page from some forbidden text, performing a desperate ceremony to thwart the doom that haunted his line. Did he succeed, warping reality to hide his family in a pocket of time forever? Or did the curse simply snuff them out in a swirl of illusions and cosmic retribution? The question remains a puzzle piece that refused to fit in the puzzle of history. The curse of the Erenwalds, invoked with shivers by minstrels, stands as a potent moral about how the thirst to escape fate or prophecy can bring about the very downfall it seeks to avoid. Meanwhile, Ardinia's identity has evolved around the memory of that abrupt severing of royal continuity. Even after hundreds of years, they keep the monarchy's memory alive with annual ceremonies. They place a wreath upon the dais, light a candle in the cathedral built by Loryn Erenwald, and recite a short verse that ends with, "Though the crown is without a king, we remain guided by the lessons of our forefathers." It's half lamentation, half affirmation. For a place that lost its supreme lineage in a single inexplicable event, Ardinia has proven remarkably stable. They discovered that leadership can come from many corners, that tradition can coexist with forward-thinking policies. Indeed, historians note that if the monarchy had endured, some of the realm's progressive reforms might never have taken root so quickly. Hence, the notion that an unsolved disappearance shaped a nation's legacy is not hyperbole, it's the lived experience of Ardinia, carried forward in law, culture, and the intangible sense of being a land touched by otherworldly forces. Over time, curiosity about the monarchy's final night has drawn foreign scholars, conjurers, or simple tourists. Everyone leaves with the same enthralled perplexity. They find no firm solution, only a swirl of contradictory lore and the resonant hush that envelops a centuries-old puzzle. Some stories hold that on extremely rare nights, perhaps once a generation, under a blood moon, strange lights can be seen near the old Erenwald crypt, accompanied by faint voices in archaic language. Superstition or not, the watchers who claim to see such things add more layers to the realm's swirling tapestry of rumor, making the monarchies vanish a living myth that refuses to fade into a footnote. In the end, the crown sits in silent vigil, reminding all who pass that power is ephemeral, that even the mightiest lines can be severed in a single stroke, whether by cosmic curses, misguided rituals, or plain mortal treachery. And ironically, the monarchy's absence, the mystery that remains, exerts a greater psychological pull on Ardinia's identity than a tangible occupant might. The line that vanished that fateful night left behind an unforgettable imprint, a testament that the march of history can take abrupt and chilling turns, forging the shape of a nation for centuries to come. Thus persists the legend of a crown without a king, an emblem of how swiftly destiny can shift, how a seemingly stable monarchy can vanish at the apex of its prosperity, and how a people can find resilience in forging a new path from the embers of the old. The story endures in songs around flickering hearths, in festivals commemorating the lost royals, and in the quiet footsteps of visitors wandering palace halls, searching for a ghostly echo or a half-buried sign that might at last unravel the secret of the Erenwald disappearance. And though the final truth remains elusive, its influence upon Ardinia's legacy is undeniable, a chronicle of the bizarre interplay between fate, power, and the haunting possibility that not even kings can escape the unknown forces that lie beneath the surface of mortal aspirations.